What's going on, retro gaming fans, and welcome back to another episode from Rehab Gaming. So in today's video, we're going to be taking this sad and sorry Zelda Majora's Mask N64 game cart, and we're going to be giving it a new shell. So unfortunately, when I purchased this item from an eBay seller, they didn't package it that well, and it was damaged in transit. It has a couple of cracks in the shell. Also, there are some major chipping on the edge, and then the two clips that hold the cart shell together on the bottom side near the cart connector are completely broken off. So stay tuned and we'll get right at it. So there's a couple places on this game cart that were severely damaged. There is this chipping right up here on the leading edge for the back half of the shell. If you look right here, you'll notice that those two clips are actually missing as well that holds the bottom of the cart together. Then as we rotate over here to the backhand side, you can see a little line right there that is actually a crack that goes all the way from this corner to behind the rear label. So unfortunately, no part of this shell is going to be salvageable, but we went ahead and we found a replacement shell. The color is just a little off. You can kind of tell that it is a replacement shell, which is perfectly fine, seeing as how this is going to be a shell swap. This is not going to be an original shell. It's not also going to be a Nintendo branded shell. So the color variation will just be a tool to keep me aware of that this game had a different shell put on it. So in order to get the original game apart, we're going to go ahead and grab our security bit driver, take out these two screws, and we're going to separate the halves of the game case. We're also going to pull out the internals, and then we'll take a look at the method that we're going to use in order to get the front and the rear label off. So before we get to taking the stickers off the original shell and transferring over to the new shell, I wanted to kind of go over this game with you and the reason why I'm so frustrated that this even happened in the first place. So this game is in extremely great shape, besides, of course, the messed up shell. It doesn't look like it had any issues with moisture, nothing was spilled on it. The PCB on the inside of the game looks fantastic. Also, if you look at the contacts right there, they're nice and shiny and clean. So other than needing to replace the game shell, this game was in perfect condition. Hence my frustration of why we have to do a shell swap in the first place. So that crack that's on the backhand side of the game shell, I wanted to give you a little bit better view of it. When you pull the cart apart, you can actually see that it goes from this top corner all the way to dead center where this post is on this shell. So there is no way to even save this thing. So we're going to carefully go ahead and grab a heat gun. We're going to pull both the front and the rear label off these shell pieces, and we're going to transplant them over here. Now, I've heard of people using a hairdryer, but personally I don't think a hairdryer is actually going to get hot enough in order to reactivate the adhesive on the backhand side of these labels. So what I'm going to be using is actually a heat gun for automotive purposes, and also it's used for heat shrink applications and also for decal applications. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. This is the heat gun that we're going to be using to activate the adhesive on the backhand side of the cart and the front hand side of the cart. It actually has two heat settings. One's going to be for low in the center, one's going to be for high all the way down. What we're going to be using is the low heat, and also the fan is going to be on low as well, because we don't want to scorch the sticker. We also don't want to burn the adhesive. We just want to get it activated just enough so we can get it transferred over to our new shell. So those of you who might be listening along with some earphones or earbuds, I'm actually going to mute this part of the video because I don't want to blow your eardrums out. So this back label is going to be one of those things you want to definitely take your time with because it's so thin. What I use is a small little razor blade like this to get up underneath this leading edge. And I'm actually going to walk this razor underneath the label in order to get the adhesive to pull away from the cart without tearing or cutting this label. Alright, so we got the label completely off the backhand side. Now it's going to be time to transfer it over. Now what you want to do is you want to heat the label up a little bit so you can reactivate the glue just in case it gets cold. And then you're going to drop it down into place. Make sure you line everything up. And if you don't get it centered, just make sure that you can pull it right back up. Don't push down too hard. So unfortunately, it's going to be a little difficult to get this thing centered on here. It might take you a couple of tries to do it. That's why you don't want to push down, unless you really want this thing to be stuck there good. And if you have problems with the label rolling on you, what you can do is the label will get a memory. Once you pull it off, just roll it backwards, kind of like that. It'll take out a little bit of that memory so you can actually get it on here decently. See how it lines up. No, not exactly too happy with that. We'll try this again. This is one of those things where you really do need some patience. Nope, still not happy with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my time, get this all lined up, and I'll show you what it looks like after we're done. So now we got our all aligned. This is about as good as it's going to get. What you want to do is you want to go ahead and make sure to push out all of the air bubbles so there are no air bubbles stuck underneath of the sticker. Now another thing that you can use in order to do this without marring up the label, you can use the rounded edge of the blade, but just be very careful you don't cut yourself. You can just glide it along, just try and spread all of the bubbles out so you don't have any issues. And the other thing that I like to do is after I get this label stuck on, I want to reactivate the glue with it on here so I can try and get it to relax and seat down on this backhand side. So I'm going to go ahead and reflow this, get it a little warm, make sure I spread everything out, there's no bubbles trapped in, and then we'll go and grab the front side of the game cart. So moving on to the front side of this game cart, it's going to be the exact same method that we're going to use to get this front label off. This front label is actually going to be a little easier because it is the holographic label, one, and two, it's actually stiffer. So when your label is stiffer, it'll make it easier for you to be able to peel it up. It comes up a lot easier. You can also transfer a little more heat to the label itself, but just make sure that you don't scorch this because it is possible that with these holographic labels here, you can scorch the finish on them and it'll just really mess it up. So just be really careful, take your time, make sure you go over it slowly with your heat gun and just make sure that when it's ready to come up, you don't just yank it up, because the other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to rip off the ink on the backhand side of this. So we're going to go ahead and heat this up and get it pulled off and transfer it to this side. So I'm actually starting to feel quite a bit of resistance with the razor blade under here. It makes it feel like that the adhesive is starting to re-solidify. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and heat it up a little more, and you might have to do this a couple of times during this process just to make sure that that glue loosens up so you're not going to tear anything off the back of this label. So I went ahead and got that front label off of this piece, and we're putting it on the new cart shell. Sorry about bumping the camera there. And I don't know if you can really tell, but it got a little wavy from it getting heated up. So what we're going to do is we have it kind of laid into place where it's going to set. I'm going to take the heat gun and I'm going to go over the top of this. We're going to get this flattened back out, and then we're going to use some pressure to push this label down on this cart and make sure that the adhesive reactivates and completely holds down this front sticker. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. Also, before I forget, if with these you do have a paper backing that the adhesive is affixed to, that paper backing can get pulled away, and also the adhesive can just remain on this side of the cart that you're taking it from. In order to replace the adhesive, you can actually take, I believe it's 3M who produces it, or it might be Scotch, I don't remember, but it's a spray-on sticker adhesive. And basically all you do is an aerosol can, you spray it on the back of the label, wait until it becomes tacky, and then you can stick it back on whatever you need to stick it on. So if for some reason that you have issues with this actually staying on your cart, make sure that you have some of that adhesive. You can spray it on there and it'll completely reactivate any of the old adhesive that's there, plus it'll give you a little more adhesive on there to help it stick properly. And there you have it. With a little bit of patience, some elbow grease, and a little bit of ingenuity, we went ahead and got both these labels off of the old cart shells, transplanted them onto a brand new shell. Now, I do want to mention, when you're working with these holographic labels, it's extremely important that you heat them evenly, because if you get some hot spots in one particular portion of that label, you can cause the label to ripple or distort, and it's very difficult to try and get those distortions out of the label. So while you're working with it, just be really careful, try and do your best to get it off as evenly as possible, as straight as possible, and don't put any ripples into this plastic of the label. So I do find it a lot more easier to work with the paper labels than these holographic labels, but that's just because of that problem that you can have with the rippling. So the only thing that we need to do now is get this game cart put back together. And there you have it. At the top we have our old shell that's all broken up and busted. At the bottom we have our newly finished product, and it doesn't look half bad. Aside from the slight color difference, you can definitely tell that the plastic used for the replacement shell isn't exactly the same as the plastic that was used for the original, but that's not that big of a deal. Now, if you do want to get your hands on one of these gold shells, it is going to cost a little bit. I believe I paid over $10 for one of these shells because, believe it or not, they're not all that common. And I believe I got it from either eBay or Etsy. I'll see if I can try and post a link to where I got this shell from in the description below. So that's going to wrap it up for this project. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button down below. Also, if you're new to our channel, please feel free to subscribe. And without further ado, thanks for stopping by, and we hope you have a wonderful day.